His service to the residents of his community sets an example for other lawmakers to follow, and certainly sets the bar for me as a new member of Congress. Mr. Dingell's constituents know that he cares more about getting things done for them than he does about getting honors for himself. And that's why I think it's fitting that as we are honoring him here on the floor today, he is preparing to actively participate in a hearing being held by the Energy and Commerce Committee's Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee, making sure that the food that our children and our families consume is safe. Mr. Dingell is an inspiration for all of us. I now yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Schauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I can think of no greater honor than to pay tribute to John D. Dingell, Jr. of Michigan, who today becomes the longest-serving member in the 220-year history of the U.S. House of Representatives. As one of Michigan's newest members, today is my 36th day as a member of Congress. Today is John Dingell's 19,420th day. As Chairman Dingell told the press this week, it isn't how long, it's how well. No one has done it better than Chairman Dingell. As a representative whose district is next door to his, what is most remarkable to me is how universally loved, revered, and respected he is by his constituents. Their faith in him is acknowledgement of his selfless service and unblemished record of always putting the needs of real people first, whether championing universal health care, clean water, or good jobs and a strong middle class. In the many years I've known Chairman Dingell, he has been a great and supportive mentor. My first week on the job here, the dean offered me a simple piece of advice: stay focused on the issues that are most important to your constituents in your district and ignore the rest. Chairman Dingell, thank you for sharing your wisdom and being the statesman that our founders envisioned. And most of all, thank you for all that you continue to do.
The gentleman from Michigan, Ms. Upton.
Mr. Speaker, at this point I would yield 1 minute to the distinguished minority leader of the House, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Boehner.
Well, let me thank my colleagues from Michigan for sponsoring this resolution. I rise today to congratulate our colleague and my friend John Dingell as the longest-serving member in the history of the United States House of Representatives. And while we've heard this said, I think, in some way before, it's not the fact that Mr. Dingell is the longest-serving man or member of the House. It's the fact that he's been a giant of a man over all these years. I know I've only been here 18 years and 2 months, but early on in my congressional career, I had a chance to work with Mr. Dingell. And over the course of my time here in Washington, he and I have developed a very close friendship. And his word is his bond. Whether he's with you or against you, you never have to have any doubts about where John Dingell is. And we've been on the same side, thankfully, many times. But even when we're in opposition to each other, it's not as though that we are opposed to each other. We maybe have different ideas about which way to move ahead. But he really is someone that is revered by all of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And it's my honor as the Republican leader, John, to come here today and say thank you and congratulations.
The gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Peters, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would now yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Hill.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some of you may know that in my younger days I broke a few athletic records. But today John Dingell has broken a record that shows exactly what kind of man he is, a devoted public servant. I rise today to honor John Dingell's service to the people of Michigan and to the nation. He is an undeniable leader, but also a teacher and a mentor. He has been in Washington for some years now, but he has never strayed from his Midwestern roots. Everything he does is for the betterment of his constituents. Mr. Speaker, back in the 50s and 60s, the reputation of Congress was much higher than what it is today. Today, the low approval ratings are of concern to me and I think a lot of people. But back in the 50s and 60s, when Mr. Dingell was a prominent member of this body, the reputation of Congress was high. People in America respected the Congress of the United States. And it was because of the way people like John Dingell respected the institution of our Congress. We need to return to those days. The days of slashing and burning this institution need to disappear. We need to follow the leadership of people like John Dingell, who throughout his entire career was never a slash and burn politician. He was a person that may have disagreed with you, but he never disrespected you. And that's why all of us in this body respect a man like John Dingell. It has been an honor and a privilege for me to serve on the Commerce Committee with him. He has helped me tremendously. John, I pause today to thank you for your service and tell you how much I respect you, not only what you have done for me, but what you have done for this institution. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Upton.
Mr. Speaker, at this point I would yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. McCotter.
Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. McCotter, is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, gentleman from Michigan. It is a great day for Michigan. And having grown up there, I first heard the word Dingell used in conjunction with the auto industry. Because the people in my neighborhood, whether they were blue-collar, white-collar, or car dealers, knew that there was one person in this Congress that would always look out for them. And that as long as he was in this body, they would have a voice and a hope. And today, we celebrate the fact that that voice has been in this chamber longer than any other member of the United States House. And as someone from Michigan, I am eternally grateful, not only for his service to this institution, but for his service to neighborhoods like mine throughout our entire state and our country. It is often said, as I've told you earlier on the radio, that mere greatness is fleeting, but that goodness and greatness are timeless. To Chairman Dingell, your service to this institution and to your beloved state of Michigan and to the country which you defended as a veteran will always consider your service timeless, as will be their gratitude for it. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Peters, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd now like to yield 3 minutes of time to the distinguished gentleman and a colleague of mine from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, is recognized for 2 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Well, for you, John, and I guess I'm not supposed to be directing my comments to a particular member. To John Dingell and Debbie Dingell, this is an emotional moment, but it is for all of us. To know John Dingell, one has to know his roots and his father's. Coming from an area that saw the middle class develop, really, for many, for the first time, a job that really paid. Health care for so many, for the first time, provided. A pension for the first time, in most cases, that protected. And in many cases, for the first time, a single family house. For John Dingell, the automotive industry wasn't a special interest. It was an area that had interests that were special. And so John Dingell has never forgotten those roots, has never forgotten the blossoming of the middle class and his determination to fight for it.